everybody, welcome to the Basis Points Podcast. I'm Kevin Flanagan, head of fixed income strategy at Wisdom Tree Asset Management. Well, the yield curve uninverts, sort of. Over the last couple of months, I've wanted to call attention to the likely future direction of the Treasury yield curve, and the topic has gained increasing attention in both the media, social media, and other bond market circles. So I thought, some update was in order, and sure enough, as I'm talking to you, one of the two closely followed yield curve measures has in fact uninverted, but another gauge remains deeply in negative territory. First up, let's address the construct or the curve that moved into positive territory, and that's the Treasury 2-year, 10-year yield curve. And as I'm speaking to you here, the spread was coming in at about plus 5 basis points. And I know that's not necessarily a headline-making number, but still, it's no longer inverted. In fact, over the last few weeks, this spread has flirted in and out of negative and positive territory, only to return to slightly below the zero threshold by the end of the trading day. This time around, the uninversion could be ready to stick. Well, why? Because of the latest employment report. And while the most anticipated jobs report in quite some time didn't concretely answer the debate for a 25 or 50 basis point rate cut at next week's Fed meeting, it did confirm at a minimum a quarter-point reduction in the Fed funds trading range will occur. Now, for the record, the labor markets do suggest that the numbers are cooling, but the question is whether it rises to the level of concern that a 50 or a half a point rate cut is usually associated with, and I would argue it doesn't, at least not now at this stage of the game. But the rate cut cycle will finally get underway nonetheless. And that takes us to the other closely watched yield curve, and that's the Treasury 3-month 10-year construct. And unlike the steepening witnessed for the 2s, 10s, the 3-month 10-year curve has actually moved into more negative territory over the last 3 months or so. And just to give you some perspective, the inversion here has increased by about 55 basis points and moved back towards negative 135 basis points. Meanwhile, 2s, 10s, they're in positive territory for the first time since June 2022. So as I wrote in a blog and I talked about on a podcast in late August, this divergence has its genesis in speculation versus current Fed funds reality. What do I mean by that? Well, the 2s, 10s curve is based more on where the market, think the Treasury 2-year note, is discounting where the Fed funds range is ultimately headed, while the 3-month 10-year curve is based more on where Fed funds, proxy here being the 3-month T-bill, will be after the next FOMC meeting. So as we're speaking here, the Treasury 2-year note is yielding just under 3.7%, or 125 to 150 basis points below the current Fed funds trading range. In other words, the 2-year is now priced for at least 6 rate cuts. That's assuming quarter-point intervals, of course. On the other side of the trade, the 3-month T-bill carries a yield of around 5 to 5.05% and representative really of only 1 quarter-point rate cut. So, bottom line here, needless to say, both the 2 and 10-year notes have already priced in a lot of good news. And at some point, as I keep saying, that's going to need to be validated. But that being said, I do believe the trend for each of the yield curves that we're talking about here will be a steepening one in the months ahead. But as we've been witnessing, that road to uninverted territory may not necessarily be a straight line. So I'm going to end it there. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and be well.